I'd like to call the meeting to order for October 21st, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised in the Asbury Park Press and the Beacon on January 14th, 2021, and as amended on October 19th, 2021, and by posting a notice in the Forked River Post Office and the Lenoka Harper Post Office, and by filing a copy of the notice with the Lacey Township Clerk as required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Mr. DeGeorge, can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Claus.
Here.
Mr. Scanlon.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Mrs. DeSenza.
Here.
Mrs. Downing.
Here.
Mr. Polino. Mrs. McAvoy.
Here, thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, we will have public comment. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon, state your name, address, or affiliation and intention to make a statement. Comments at this time shall be limited to agenda items only. Comments shall be addressed to the board president. Comments shall be made on one issue at a time. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, at which time you will be muted to allow other residents to speak. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to comment have been recognized. Mr. Lytle, do we have any public comment on agenda items only?
Anyone who would like to comment at this time is instructed to virtually raise your hand using the Zoom app or dial *9 if you are calling in via telephone. You will be called to unmute your microphone and speak in turn. Agenda items only. Oh, we had one. I think he must, oh, it's back. Hold on one second. Okay, Mr. Rizzoli, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Mr. Rizzoli, we can.
Okay, my comment is about the contract that you are going to be voting on tonight with the Lacey Police Department. I don't understand something, and maybe you can clarify it for me. As of yesterday, as I understand it, our illustrious governor came out and said anybody who's doing any kind of subcontracting work or contracting work for the state must be COVID tested or submit to testing or show proof that they've been vaccinated. Now, in the contract language that I've read that you're going to be voting on tonight, I didn't see any mention of COVID testing at all in that document. And I'm wondering why not? If they are being contracted and you're a public entity and going under the auspices of state direction under the New Jersey Department of Education, are we in violation of the governor's mandate, which you all seem to be following to the T anyway, because you're holding public meetings by Zoom, okay? By not having any policemen who come to these school grounds to perform any kind of subcontract or contracting work from the Lacey Police Department, tested in advance or proved they've been vaccinated. I don't know the legal ramifications of that, but as a citizen, I just don't understand the difference between whether they're a police officer or they're some other kind of subcontractor working for a public enemy. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? Oh, well, anyway, public entity. What's the difference? Shouldn't they also be under the same auspices of testing and proof? And if so, maybe you should delay approving the contract until your attorney reviews that, adds it, or if you know the answer tonight, I'd like to hear it.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzoli. And I did read that executive order also. Right now, the services that are provided are at the football game, which is outside. So that executive order was not for outside services. Mr. Padula, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the contract. I don't think you are, but by what Mr. Rizzoli was saying, do you have any comments as an attorney on that?
Yeah, sure, Madam President, thank you. I've seen the governor's pronouncement that Mr. Rizzoli referred to, and that dealt with individuals and entities that have contracts with the state or state agencies. So that would not apply to us, notwithstanding, and you're correct, I'm not familiar with this specific contract and what it applies to, but the police officers who are involved with regularly appearing in our premises would be covered by Executive Order 253 as a covered worker, and they would be required to show proof of vaccination or a weekly COVID test.
Does that answer your questions, Mr. Rizzoli?
Yeah, as long as, like I said, they're not treated any different, and the attorney is saying that they do have to show proof of vaccination. I mean, you're putting, that much stress on parents and everybody else who shows up at the school grounds for whatever reason. I don't know if it has to be in the contract and stipulated that way. That's the only thing I was concerned about or wondering about. But
It would
that's
not
why
be
you
because
pay
they're
your
covered.
attorney.
Sorry, Mr. Rizzoli, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it would not have to be stipulated in the contract because it's required under Executive Order 253.
Okay,
Right.
thank you very much. I'll get back with everybody later with my other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzoli. Mr. Lytle, are there any other comments?
Yes. Mr. Grillon, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Am I coming in clear?
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Maurice Grillon, and I live in Forked River. I was 22 years old when I started teaching in Lacey Township. That was 24 years ago, and I taught foreign language at Cedar Creek, Lenoka Harbor, and Mill Pond. And I started out with about 12 German students at the high school, and man, were we successful. Within 3 years, the German program grew to the point where I needed to be full-time at the high school. And then we needed to hire a second German teacher. And as of today, our program has grown 1,500% and has held its place as New Jersey's largest German program for well over a decade. And I don't want to tout my own horn, but I was Princeton University awarded me New Jersey Teacher of the Year. I was Teacher of the Year at our high school here in town, and District Staff Member of the Month. I'm trying to just share with you that I dig my life, right? And I met my wife at the high school 17 years ago. She was a biology teacher, and now she has since retired to raise our 3 kids at home. And I found Jesus here in Lacey. I was a deacon at Forked River Baptist Church for a number of years. And some teachers say that they could never live where they work, but me, I love this town and I love my job. Due to my sincere religious convictions, I simply will not get vaccinated. And I just want the board to know that when and if the time comes for me to choose between doing what I feel is right before God and my pursuit of happiness through my vocation, I will most certainly follow my convictions. Please know that, I want you all to know that I'm not anti-vax, and I don't judge the choices that others make regarding their health care. I'm just pro-liberty, pro-individual choice, pro-leave me the heck alone. So I'm asking the board to just remember me and to remember my loyalty to this district, to the value that I bring to this town, to remember the relationships that I've forged over the decades, to remember me when decisions have to be made that could potentially one day after November result in the loss of my job, or maybe even my pension. So, whether it be while you guys are discussing contract language, forging contract language, or when and if you ever have to redefine what constitutes insubordination, I'm asking the board not only for your verbal support in the future, but to come with me if needed to Trenton when we rally to defend yet again the religious exemption that we are currently enjoying in the state, not just for students and their religious exemptions, but for all New Jersey residents. And I'm asking the board to consider suing the governor or New Jersey's state institutions, or even to add yourselves to class action lawsuits that are aimed at protecting my liberties and the liberties of all of the residents of Lacey. So, what do you have to lose? Lastly, I would like to encourage the board to hold in-person meetings in non-school buildings in the future, because humans best communicate, I believe, when we speak face to face. And just as most of you probably agree that teaching and communicating with children remotely is not optimal, communicating solely through audio during public meetings is certainly not ideal. I want you to be able to see the sincerity in my face. So before I end, I do want to repeat what I said at the board meeting a couple of months ago, if you remember, and I'll never stop saying it. And I'm looking at your faces right now when I say it. I love you, each and every single one of you, and I respect each and every single one of you.
Mr. Grilon, excuse me, sir, 5 minutes is up. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. 2 sentences. I just want to say I don't envy you. Please do what's best for our town, our state, and our nation, and strive to do what is right, not what's easiest. So thank you for your time, and God bless you. Thank you, Mr. DeGeorge.
Thank you, Mr. Grillon. Mr. Lido?
Yes. Miss Mendez, please unmute your microphone, state your name and address, and begin your public comment.
Thank you. My name is Rhiannon Mendez. I live at 1771 Woodside Road. And I just wanted to share that I woke up this morning to a news report on NJ 1015 about every aspect of the world that's consuming me. First, they spoke of the executive use authorization for the vaccine extending to children, and they followed it with Murphy's talk of taking California's lead, where they're mandating it for in-person instruction for the children. And further into the report was an account of a woman saying that school employees are at their breaking point, how there's going to be a wave of early retirement of admin and teachers, how they're already short-staffed and staff and substitutes due to contact tracing and staffing issues. And now the volunteers, like our PTA, are subject to testing mandates and vaccine mandates, and how there aren't enough bus drivers. And just like Mr. Grillon said, I've served this district proudly for 17 years, and I feel like I'm watching our world fall apart. Thousands of police and medical staff leaving, firemen leaving their boots behind. But I'm also watching what happened with Southwest Airlines, and recently an In-N-Out burger place that refused to follow the vaccine mandate. And I know we're all concerned about our community health and that there are risks to COVID, but there are also risks to vaccinations. And I feel strongly that in America, we need to hold up our freedom of choice. And this fight has been at my door for a while, and now I feel like it's at your door. And it's time as a community that we don't let it in, And I pray every day that more people, including this board and my supervisors, will join the fight and stand up for our most basic rights. I also have strong convictions against the vaccine, and I don't want to walk away from my community. I don't want my children to have this mandate and for them to not be able to attend Lacey schools. So I do hope that you consider these in the policies that you write, and like Mr. Gallant said, consider standing up with us for these basic freedoms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendis.
Madam President, I certainly don't want to cut anyone off, but I just want to remind the board that there is a public comment later in the meeting on the agenda for any topic whatsoever, and this public comment session is for agenda items only.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Padula. If you are calling in, we ask you to stick to agenda items only. Public comment will be at the 7 o'clock meeting. Thank you. Mr. Lyda, are there any other public comments?
I am seeing none.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will close the agenda portion of public comment. We will go on to superintendent and board member comments. Dr. Clark, at this time, do you have any comments?
I do not.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any comments at this time? Mrs. Claus?
I do not.
Mrs. DeSenza?
I'd like to make a brief statement. I'd like to tell the public that when you have walked a mile in our shoes, then you can complain. When you have put your name on the ballot 10 times for school board member, then you can complain. I've put my name on the ballot 11 times, including this current run for senator. Mrs. Downing is the only other person I know that's had her name on the ballot 10 times for school board member as she approaches her 30th year and completes her 10th term of office. I am deeply distressed that we had to go virtual for this meeting tonight and that the students of the month who worked so hard for this special achievement have to wait to be recognized in person. There is one more fact that I think will need to be announced at some meetings hereafter. If I hear one more person complain about the salaries we board members collect, please do your homework. We are unpaid, volunteer elected officials, the only ones in the state that do not get paid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. DeSenza. Mr. Peters?
I have no agenda comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scanlon.
I have no comments, no agenda comments at this time.
Mrs. Downing?
I have none. Thank you.
Okay, and I do not either. At this time, we will go into private session. Mr. DeGeorge, please.
Yes, ma'am. Be it resolved that a private session be convened for the purpose of discussing confidential student matters, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, confidential personnel matters, confidential legal matters, including but not limited to the current caseload, and confidential contractual matters, collective bargaining. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. The length of the private session is estimated to be 40 minutes, after which the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action may be taken. A motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
DeSenza.
We are in private session.